took over. He was his older brother, and he kind of headed up manufacturing. He was 70 years old. He wanted to retire for 5 years. Marvin wouldn't let him. Okay? But he loved his brother, and he stepped in, and you couldn't find a better person to step in and take over the company. But you don't know what's going to happen. So get the talent that you need to where you want to be, not what you need today. Thank you.
My story is incredibly different, incredibly small, and incredibly simple. What I plan to talk about tonight is the when, the what, and the why. And the when and the what really don't matter. The only thing that matters is the why. Because if you don't have the why for starting a business, for being in business, everything else doesn't matter. The why is the passion. Why do you do it? Whether it's a retail store, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's a service business, there has to be a why. True retails are the same, but there's the why. And so my little story is about the why. I worked at a small business, about 300 people, small company, large to me, of course. And I worked there for 18 years, and my passion developed from working there, and decided that I wanted to expand my leadership skills in a small business, and my passion was operations. And that was my why. My why is I could build a better mousetrap operationally, and it could be done better. And it still to this day is my passion. That was 8 years ago. So 8 years ago, I left that company, and when I left, there were negotiations tried, but in the end, I said, no. And so the last words were, Karen, this will be a lose-lose situation. And it was about a week after I left, someone said that the CEO told me that. The CEO then told someone later that, well, if anyone's going to do it, she'll do it. So I did have a passion. So in March of 2004, I left and started up my own business with Sweet Spaces, and that is an office furnishings company, which most of you know. I don't think I need to explain too much of what it is. We serve healthcare, vertical markets such as healthcare, corporations, education, and small and large business. The self-actualization of leadership was a goal of mine, but to remain a small niche business, I didn't have aspirations of becoming a multi-billion-dollar company, and I still don't. And so I'm staying within that smaller type business that I would like to be. We started out as infusing my own equity, a very small amount, and we still to this day are a debt-free company, and that's just kind of the way I like it. People call me a risk taker, but I'm not. I'm highly conservative. So that is my story. As far as growth, we started out, of course, with single me. And within the first year, I hired an accounting person and another administrative person. I do sales. And to figure out growth, I said, well, now, if I sell something, how do I get it installed? Because operations was my big thing. And it's like, well, if I hire an installer and I don't have sales, then I'm paying for an installer without the sales and vice versa, and so what comes first? So fortunately, someone was watching over me, and someone walked through the door about like my 4th day of having my own door open. And it was this man from Minneapolis, because furniture installers up here, you just don't find them. I mean, they're not abundant. And so he walked through and he says, yeah, someone told me about you, and I should come and see you. And he said, I've installed furniture for 15 years, and I run my own business installing it. And so he was a subcontractor. So I said, fine. So I went out and sold, and if I sold it, he installed it. So I didn't have to have anyone on board and pay that price. So that's how we grew the first couple of years, is by using subcontractors rather than having the expense of having a lot of staff on board. And so formed alliances with quite a few different people. It was in 2008 that our growth, still being organic, we didn't acquire anyone, our growth still being organic, we opened a facility, I should say a sales office in St. Cloud, and put a salesperson in the St. Cloud market, and that has gone well. And we service a range geographically about 160 to a 200-mile radius. We've done projects in Wisconsin, Fargo, Grand Rapids, Minneapolis. We just recently bid on one in New York, but as I was hoping I would get it. So that would have been something else. But so my goal is to continue to stay small, to continue to grow. And I really liked, Howard, how you spoke about, 15% a year and how that would double to 5 years from now, because that's one of the questions I ask is, what's the measurement of my performance, or my measurement of full-time employee to part-time employee, and do we have enough employees? And so I really gained a lot from that. Within the scope of our years, there's only 1 year that we didn't grow in size, in revenue, and that, of course, was when the building went down and the market went down for building, and so that year we remained flat or a little bit lower than we were the year before. So we looked at it and said, what do we do? We expand into business equipment, or how do we expand? So we decided to expand under our furniture umbrella, and we met at the table and we came up with idea after idea after idea. And of course, ideas in business don't matter. Only execution counts. And so we actually were in a client's office who called us in. It was a healthcare facility, and called us in, and my sales staff was next to me, and it was going to be her sale and her account. And this owner, or her CEO, said, we're going to need carpet in this room, we need the lighting changed out, we need the wallpaper changed, and we need furniture, and we need this, and we need it in 2 months, and we need someone to do it for us. And I said, we can do that. And the person standing next to me said, I mean, she just absolutely froze. But that's the execution that I'm speaking of. You can have all the ideas in the world, but at some point you just pull the trigger and say, we're doing it. And you just jump in with both feet. And it was a highly successful project. And customer was very pleased, and of course we gained that through forming alliances, again, subcontractors. We became a contractor of the project, and we brought many others on board. Growth has been organic for us. We've added service in the umbrella of art and decor, that still falls under furniture, and office moves and reconfigures. And office moves and reconfigures, again, we rely on subcontractors. Yes, by this time, after 8 years, I do have staff installers that are on staff, but there are times when we've got a project where we're moving 50 workstations, i.e. this particular building, and have to be done in a certain amount of time, and we do rely on some subcontractors at that point in time. We also added company cultures, studying of company cultures and branding, added to our growth as well, and being able to work with the company's branding and being able to see it not only outward but inward to the employees that work for those companies. That's important, and we've worked into customized boardroom tables. Some of the biggest growth problems that we've experienced are, and especially in the Brainerd market, more than in the St. Cloud or Metro market, are finding good sales staff. And there's sales and then there's sales. We have what's considered the complex sale versus the transactional sale. My sale in our company can be from, sometimes we work on a sale for 1.5 years before it actually comes to fruition, before it actually installs, or before it actually gets put in. not everyone can do that as far as has the personality and getting the right character to do that sort of thing, versus a transactional sale that's very quick. So finding a good sales staff in this area has been very, very difficult for us, and that's something we continue to grow on. The other processes and efficiencies that others have talked about are very important, have been very important to our growth in terms of making sure that the processes and the efficiencies are correct, and then measuring the outcome rather than just measuring the process itself. I would reiterate that as well. Some of the other areas that we struggle with are, in terms of growth, are do we find another company in terms of growing, but I still do prefer to stick with just the organic growth of X amount per year and not acquiring another company. So, as I said, it would be short and it would be simple, because that's actually what I wish to maintain and retain, and that's my story. Thank you.
Her job here was continuing with simple. We moved 242 for the 3 of the weekend. So being back at college doing an all-nighter. Well, the nice thing is you're on speaker number 5. The bad news is I've got to follow 4 very good speakers, and thank you all for setting the bar up here. Anyway, I want to give you just kind of a quick update on kind of who Census is, and as I go through the slides, just kind of lessons learned as we've gone through that. Myself, I'm Steve Christensen. I'm the Executive Vice President here at Census. Essentially, we are a nationwide company. Here we go. My background is, I'll jump into that first, is I am a graduate at the University of Minnesota Carlson School of Management. I spent 10 years working for what was then Twin City Federal Savings and Loan in the late 80s. And remember that little bit of history, as I've gone through a bit of a crisis. We were paying 18% on 10-year CDs and loaning out mortgages at 22%. Needless to say, customer service was a challenge. Spent 10 years there doing everything from working. I started as a teller, went into branch management. I opened the second in-store branch in a grocery store in the state of Minnesota. It's interesting to say, hey, how's that let us on a checking account? Have that type of background. Did some branch operations, and then essentially went out and went in the traditional brick and mortars and did everything with branch management to security sales. Part of the reason for the change coming up here was twofold. One is, as you become kind of an expert in running branches, I became kind of I need you to go to the next branch and go fix it. So you got the reputation of, I've been assigned to this branch, and walk in and the staff would look at you and go, oh crap, it's him. So after a while, you kind of say, what's my next opportunity? And it actually came in the form of what was then universal pensions. So I want to jump in a little bit, is how did we get here today in the census? Universal pension was founded back in 1975 by a person local here, Arnie Johnson. Some of you are likely familiar with Arnie. And as I heard the various speakers coming in and saying, well, I got to walk up and say, I have this great idea. He went up and said, I'm going to go talk to Arnie. What we evolved to back in 2001 is Arnie sold universal pensions to a company called Vices. Vices was the national financial services supporting firm that went into mutual funds, commercial insurance wholesaling, and retirement services. It was also traded on the New York Stock Exchange. So you went from working for Arnie to, and you're now a publicly traded company, is what are you going to do in the next 90 days? And that was the 90-day question. So your planning, your budgets, and everything else evolved very differently. To then, we got into about 10 years ago, Vices was sold to Citibank in an immediate sale out to a private equity firm called J.C. Flowers & Company. J.C. Flowers is a former Goldman Sachs investor who essentially goes out and develops capital equity. Okay, and that's where we sit today as part of J.C. Flowers. They have multiple funds they work at, but a census really is, our business is again nationwide, and we provide retirement and health savings account expertise to financial services organizations. That's mutual fund companies, insurance brokerages, your banks and your credit unions. So we're out there teaching them how to do the compliance behind the scenes, but also help them essentially take care of a necessary evil in their world. Their job is to sell assets, or they're out there to drive loans, depending on which entity you're talking to. So our goal is to say, I'm going to work with your 401ks, your IRAs, your health savings accounts, your development necessities. Those of you who have been out selling in the firm, is my job is to sell you something you have to have, and not necessarily something that's glamorous in the sales channel. Okay? And we do that through a number of different organizations, as you see behind me. So, what is a census as a company overview? And obviously, I won't spend a lot of time on each one of these bullets, but I bring it up and say, we've been doing this for 30 years, and we really are the invisible expertise behind the scenes, depending on what you're doing in the retirement services field. We don't compete with our clients, and that's